Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on a Project AIR getting started session. So I'm just gonna start by explaining a little bit what Project AIR is, and then I'm gonna jump into a quick demo on how to set up the whole environment on the local host. And first of all, I'm gonna start with a little bit overview of what Project AIR is. So I'm Miguel Torres. I'm principal architect on the TIBCO labs under the office of the CTO at TIBCO. And basically, as part of TIBCO labs, we have a set of projects. This is Project AIR, which basically allows you to register and interact IoT devices, like gateways, edge devices, sensors, etc. Every time you have an IoT architecture, the first thing you're going to do is to know how your devices are functioning, where they are, how they're called, and interact with them, etc. So that's one of the first things that Project AIR allows you to do. The second is once you know where they are and if they are sending data, then you want to process that data, right? So all that IoT capture data, you want to process it, you want to change it, you want to store it somewhere else. So Project AIR allows you to do all that as well. It's worth mentioning that in AIR, we have an agnostic approach in terms of the deployment of the whole infrastructure. So you can decide to deploy it into the different cloud providers, even on-prem, and as we will be showing later, even in your local host using something like Minikube or something like that. It also allows you to own your own data, analyze it and store it anywhere you want. And it adds extensibility in every layer. As we will see, you will have extension points from the edge side all the way to the transport, all the way up to the cloud or your data center, where you can decide where to store that data in your data source, in your data store, or even analyze it with Spotfire, for instance, or any other analytics tool. So just quickly, the value proposition, as we said, is to register and interact with those IoT devices. Once you know what they are, you plug them into the system, and then you can interact with them and add some data. Once you have that registered, then you can process that data regardless of where they are coming from. And then what happens is you can automate and have some cost savings, reducing the risk and augmenting the visibility that you have over those devices and data. So you can enable a better engagement with customers since you have real-time data with all that, and then you can have more visibilities with your analytics tools, etc., etc. So some of the core capabilities of AIR are, as we said, to connect and extract that IoT devices, IoT data from the devices. You can manage that data because you decide the format, you decide where it goes, etc., etc. You can create triggers to respond to those IoT events. You can add rules. You can feed that data into big data repositories or whatever you decide to do. That's really pluggable and very dynamic. You can visualize and explore that IoT data using your analytics tools. You can monitor and measure as well as customize your UI to act and have different functionalities on top of the core AIR functionalities. And then you can combine IoT data with your ML models, AI ML models, either at the edge or all the way up to the data center. And then, or cloud. Then you can have ability to map the various endpoints within the organization. Some of the features that AIR has are, from the infrastructure level, is cloud agnostic or data center agnostic in this case, where you can decide which framework you're going to use or which cloud provider you're going to use, because we run on top of Kubernetes. So as long as you have a Kubernetes cluster, AIR should be ready to run on top of it. Then you have the technology stack from the edge, including hardware, microservices, and all the different transport protocols that we provide some out of the box. as we will see, to all the way to the cloud, where you have the different microservices that you can create. You can decide your compute, some filtering. You can have your pluggable data stores where your data is going to go. And then you can decide, okay, how you're going to analyze that data in tools like Spotify or any other tools. And then your extension points, which are important for some extensibility. You can have extension points from the edge, where you can have different device adapters if the device is not out of the box supported. We are leveraging EdgeX Foundation, which is a project from the Linux Foundation that allows you to decouple the edge devices from all the services, apps, and transports that we make use of once that data is extracted from the devices. You can have the different device services, you can have app services, you can have your different rules, you can add microservices on top to act upon that data. That's where you can add some ML capabilities, etc., etc. Once you get out a little bit of the edge, you can have some different data endpoints where how you can choose how to transfer your data from the edge all the way up to the cloud or any other legacy systems or current systems that you might be using. Another big extension point is the UI. We provide some out-of-the-box capabilities, but you can either extend it or just create your own that allows you to extend with no limit what you can provide. And all that is open source and leverages another of our TIBCO Labs project called Cloud Starters that you can check out if you want. And the last one is, as we said, some data stores where you can decide where your data is going to go. Either one or many for different sort of like the data that gets captured. So just to have a quick look at what an IoT distributed architecture looks like. So if you're all the way to the edge, you're going to have all your devices and your gateway, which what we are doing is leveraging EdgeX Foundry as our gateway sort of like bridge or middleware that allows us to connect to those devices and have these nice microservice capabilities to connect to it and add different transports to send the data all the way up to the cloud. So then as an IoT platform, you can have the different microservices that support that data. So, okay, how are you gonna process it? How are you gonna error correct it? How are you gonna filter it, how you're gonna add some more functionalities, rules, etc., etc. So that's where your IoT platform, and that's the core of AIR, provides you. And then once you have all that, you can put an UI on top that will allow you to connect all that. And the last one is the enterprise, where once you've processed all that data, you want to make access to it, to your processes, to your databases, to your different API management, etc., etc. So that's when you do the actual connectivity. So that's where Project AIR sits, which is the platform that allows you to capture that data, formalize that data, normalize that data, and make sense of the data, add some rules, clean it up, and then send it all the way to your enterprise, as well as having a UI to manage all that. So with further ado, with that little introduction, I'm just gonna do a little demo on how to get it started. The best way to start is you can go to our TIBCO Labs webpage. It's tibcosoftware.github.io, TIBCO Labs. And in here, you have a list of all the projects that are under TIBCO Labs umbrella. The one we're talking about today is Project AIR, but there are more. So for augmented reality, you have blockchain, you have natural language processing, you have cloud starters for creating apps. That is what's based, Labs AIR is based on. You have for AutoML, you have for process mining, for graph databases, etc., etc. So we have a rich set of new technologies to look into. So if we go back to Project AIR, the best way to start is to go to the documentation. And here, the first choice you have to make is where you want to install your infrastructure. For this demo, since it's going to be a short one, we'll start on Minikube locally, and we'll show the capabilities. So first, you have to go through these 3 different steps. First, you install the infrastructure, which, as we saw, is this part, the one that has all the processing capabilities. And we're going to choose Minikube. Then we'll start the edge, which is this part that will have some devices, simulations that we will be able to connect to. And then the last one is the UI, which is this part here that glues everything together, giving you a good dashboard and a good way to register your devices. So if we go to installing on Minikube, there are only 2 small prerequisites. The first one is Docker, and the second one is Minikube. We've added some links here for better installation. But once you have all that installed, the first thing is to run Minikube install. So I've installed mine already. It takes a little bit, that's why I did it before. So this is what should look like. So when everything goes well, then the second part is to actually enable ingress. So you do Minikube add-ons enable ingress. And once you do that, you should get a message like this that is enabled. And then the third one, which is important, it's to actually get the pods to make sure that the NGINX controller it's up and running. You have to wait until this one is up and running to continue. Okay, so you can wait a little bit or just run that command. So after you have that, we're gonna pull the CLI. So this one will go into Docker Hub and pull the CLI. That is the one that has the installer included. So once you have that, then you're gonna need 2 terminals. The first one is the one that gives access to your Kubernetes cluster. And then once you have access, then you, from a different command, then you're actually gonna do the AIR installation. From a second terminal, you just execute this. And this one, what it's gonna do is to install on the Kubernetes cluster a set of Helm charts. That comprises like the whole infrastructure here, and we can have a look at it. So the best way to check the status of that, if you want to have a look under the hood, you can do Minikube dashboard. And this one gives you a good Kubernetes dashboard that tells you the whole process of the whole setting up. So right now they're just like a few pods getting ready. So that takes a little while. So while we're doing that, after that's finished, we're good with the infrastructure. So let's give it a little bit more time. And in the meantime, let's start configuring the edge. So we have this part up and running, which we'll check the status in a minute. So now we're going to go and start the EdgeX. So we've provided a little demo file that starts the whole EdgeX and also includes a couple of demonstration devices with some dummy data. So the first thing to do is to save this demo file, which is a zip file under software. Okay, we have a demo folder here pretty on the project AIR. Okay, we can remove the existing ones and start from scratch. Remove this guy. Okay, so we can save it there. So what we do is we unzip it, and what we can do is to add a folder to a workspace to have a look at it, because we're going to have to change some configuration. Okay, so this is the basic demo with a little bit scripts that we will use later on. But the first thing we need to do is to go into this export MQTT configuration and open there. If you follow the demo, let's check out the status of the dashboard. We're still waiting. We're just still pending. So we're just gonna wait until everything is green. But basically, what we're gonna do is to query Minikube and list all the services that are available, because we're gonna need that data in order to set up the environment. So if you see at the pods here, we're providing a couple of out-of-the-box brokers. So for instance, we have a mosquito broker, and we have a dgraph database that we're going to be using. Okay, some of those are clearing up now. There's like just one remaining. But I think that the services are up and running, so we can query without waiting. So we can query the Minikube service list, and that should give us a list of all the available services with their URLs that are here. Okay, everything is up and running, everything is green. So Kubernetes is happy. Okay, that's good. So after we have this list, we just go into the basic demo, and we need to do a change on the configuration, the export MQTT configuration. And we have to replace add your mosquito endpoint here with the mosquito endpoint that comes in this list. So that is the core mosquito service endpoint. So we need to use this guy here. So we copy it and we put it on the host name here under the basic demo export MQTT configuration. And then we have this port here. Like that. And then the topic, we're going to leave it like that because then we're going to configure it later on. So once we have that, the EdgeX is configured, and we just need to go into the basic demo. So we can copy the URL here, and here we can do there, and then we can start EdgeX. So this is just going to start the Edge part of it. So this second part, okay? So now we'll have the whole infrastructure up and running, and then we'll have the Edge part of it up and running. And the third thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start this UI. That is gonna be the glue that it's gonna put everything together. So the third thing we do, we go in the UI, we just need Git and NPM and a TIBCO Lives app subscription. Okay, we're going to use the subscription as part of our logging capabilities and authorization, and that's the only thing that is not running in your machine. The UI will run in your machine, but we will call some TIBCO services for the authentication. So the first thing is to clone the UI, which I've already done to save some time in here. So this is the name of the repository and the URL. And then the second thing is to configure the UI endpoints. So we're going to need a few bits of information as well from Minikube. So yeah, this is the whole infrastructure finishing correctly. So now we can reuse this as part of the Minikube IP. So we're going to get the Minikube IP, and then we're going to get the list again, so we have it fresh in our screen. Okay, so then we're going to use this as part of the proxy that we're going to do. So inside your UI repository, you navigate through this proxy conf prod, in this case US, because I'm based in the US, but you will do regarding on where you are. And then there are two things we need to change: the Course Anywhere and the NGINX controller here. So for the Course Anywhere, you will look into your service names, and you will have a Course Anywhere service. You're going to need all of this with a port included. Okay, so you're going to replace this. So it's going to tell them what to do. And then on this one, you're going to use your Minikube. It's explained here. In replace the IP you got from the Minikube in command, okay? So we're going to replace all this with the Minikube IP that we got from here. And Minikube IP listens to port 80, so we can either leave it empty or we can add it. Let's add it just to be specific. And that's it. Your UI is configured. Then you just go to your AIR UI page here, copy path. Then you do here, and then you just run npm install. Which should just do like a normal npm installation of all the requirements. Everything is successful. Then you just do npm run serve your US. And this is just starting the UI. So we should have everything completed now. We've done the UI, we've done the whole platform, and then we've done the EdgeX. Let's see how the EdgeX installation is working. It's still work in progress. But so we have on this side the UI running, and here we have EdgeX that is starting. EdgeX are a set of microservices that run side by side and interconnect that then allows you to have different devices connected to it. So we'll give it a few minutes. So another thing is you're going to need your live apps, as we said. One of the requirements for the UI is your live apps subscription. So you're going to need your TIBCO username and password and your client IP. Okay, so that you can find here. Let's see, cloud.tibco.com. If you are logged in, Google, I'll show where to find this. Authentication goes through. So then you select your organization. Once you're in your organization, you go to your settings. Then you go to advanced. And then here, when you click display client ID, that's the one you're going to need for your login in. And then we'll see in a second where you use it. Okay, so after the UI has started, then you just click on the URL. It's local and HTTP, well, that's why it's complaining. And then you're going to need your email address, your password for TIBCO, and then your API access key that we talked about, this guy here. So after you get your password, that's your TIBCO password, you log in, and you're in. This is the splash screen, and then when you click get started, this is good. So if there is a gateway 1 device group, then that's the first check that everything is working. That means that you've connected successfully to your database that it's underlying into this UI. So everything is looking good. So the second thing we're going to do is to connect to the EdgeX environment. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that this has ended. Okay, so EdgeX is up and running. There is a second script to get the security token. If you go to the EdgeX, after everything is up and running, then you need to get your security token, and it's in this shape. So you get it in here, and then you go to your gateway, select your gateway, put your access token, and then update the gateway. And the second check is you ping, and if you say successful, then you're good to go. That's your device up and running, and you're set up. And as you can see, you can go into your devices, you can select your gateway, and then you're going to see all your devices there. And then you're going to be able to do multiple things like your endpoint configurations and data pipelines. That's a little bit out of scope. You're up and running. And yeah, that was it. Thank you very much. Just to finish up, a few other available resources that we have for you to try. That is actually our GitHub repo and some other the TIBCO Labs page that we saw before, and our GitHub repo in case you want some more. So keep in touch. Tell us what you like, what you don't. Feel free to create issues on our GitHub repos, contribute. Happy to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a good day. Bye.